Good morning, good evening, hello and welcome. It's your boy B91 and today I'm going to talk about something that's quite dear to me and that's about my mate Daniel and some of my earlier experiences while I was at hospital.
So you say you wanna get away. We don't need a plane, you'll be your escape.
Alright guys, so today I want to talk to you about my mate Daniel. Now, we met each other really early on during our treatment. We both had leukemia and we were both going on to the same clinics every other week or so. This was back in the day where we didn't have phones or, Facebook to keep in touch, so the only time we saw each other was when we were at hospital in the clinic. Now, we had a really strong bond because, we could understand what we were going through. We got on really, really well anyway, so we always had a laugh, but you step outside the hospital and you can go to school and you get bullied for being fat because of the steroids, or you've got a nasogastric tube and, you didn't have hair or anything like that. So you get bullied for having spaghetti coming out your nose, that kind of thing, because they don't understand what it is. And that's understandable because you're only 5-6 years old and people don't, they don't understand what's going on. But you go to hospital and they don't even see that. They look straight through it and they see the person inside, So it was always nice kind of going to hospital. It was, I felt more at home there because people understood and you weren't being judged. Now, Daniel was different though because, we got on anyway and we'd always muck around and we'd be playing around in the hospital instead of just sitting there and letting things get to us. I remember the hospital calling us the Terrible Two just because we'd, be running around and causing a lot of trouble, I guess. But yeah, so we both had our treatment for 3 years. Girls have 2 years chemo I believe they just react to it better. But we had our 3 years chemo together all the way through, and it was fine. We were having a laugh every single time we saw each other, and it just kept the mood up, I guess. So, when that came to an end, it was quite hard because we wouldn't probably see each other very often. Like I said, it was kind of hard to keep in contact at that point because, we didn't have phones or Facebook to keep in touch. So, moving on going back to school and things were going all right. And then I basically find out that I'd relapsed and I got, leukemia again. So I had to start having treatment again. They weren't sure what was kind of going to happen and they didn't think I was going to make it. So I got put on a bone marrow transplant list, which meant that I had to have, radiotherapy treatments to get me ready for isolation to be then receive a bone marrow transplant. So during my treatment, just before starting my radiotherapy, I found out that Daniel got ill as well. Now, I'm not saying it was a relief to know that, but, seeing him again and realising we were both in the same boat still was, it was a happy and a sad moment. I guess you don't think of the negative things when you're that old, but we were happy to see each other again. Not necessarily for the for the reasons that we were both ill again, but it was comforting to see each other, and it was nice that someone was there and understanding what we were going through, especially as we were so close. We were best friends all the way through those 3 years, thinking that we're all clear, and then a couple months later we're both in the same boat from square one. Now, I remember only seeing him a couple of times before my radiotherapy, but I was going ahead with my radiotherapy, and every couple of weeks we'd have to go to this clinic which was kind of getting us ready to go into isolation for our getting ready to go into isolation for my bone marrow transplant to go ahead. And basically I hadn't seen him in any of the sessions aside from my last one, and obviously the radiotherapy kind of tires you out and it makes you very ill. And basically he comes over and he's like, "Oh, do you want to go play PlayStation?" And I was like, "Nah, I can't be arsed." I just remember just feeling really crap that day. And yeah, that, like, he kind of seemed a bit bummed out and went to sit down and didn't bother speaking to him after that. And then I got called in to see the doctor and went home after. I remember a couple of weeks later then I got put into isolation and did the whole bone marrow transplant process, which I'll talk about in future videos. I don't want to go too in depth about it, but had my transplant, came out and was at home being tutored, so I wasn't well to go back to school yet. And I remember reading and doing some English work, and the phone rings and my mum goes into the study and I just hear her swearing loads down the phone. And then I remember like jokingly shouting, stop swearing, because my teacher was over, so it didn't look great that my mum was swearing in front of me. So I was like, "Oh, stop swearing." And then she hangs up the phone, and I remember her walking down towards the kitchen, and the way that she was looking at me, she didn't even need to say anything. And I remember just bursting out crying, and she was like, "Oh, Daniel hasn't made it." And yeah, it just hit me really hard. It still does, because thinking that we've been through all that together, and then the last time that I could have seen him and done something with him, just because I was feeling shit on that day, I didn't want to do anything, and that was the last time I'd seen him. It's one of those things, in retrospect, you'd wish you could go back and just sit down and chill and play PlayStation or something, but at the time I wasn't clearly up to it, and that's how it's turned out. And how I kind of live with that is thinking, because that was a selfish thing in my mind, I felt that was a selfish thing to kind of do in retrospect. So I try and do what I can do for my mates, so I would never want something like that to happen again, when just because I can't be asked to do something when someone needs me or whatever, I'm not just gonna par them off and be like, no, because you don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, in that kind of situation, something was more likely to happen, but we'd both been fighting it for close to 4 years by that point, and you just don't think that it's going to happen. I didn't even think about that kind of thing happening. I just assumed that he was going to make it, and then we'd be back to seeing each other and having fun. But yeah, honestly, it's one of the things that keeps me going, because I think, like, honestly, I don't feel like I'm here for myself. But if I was ever going to do something stupid, I'd think, what would Daniel think of this? He'd want me to make the most of things and to hold on in there and make something on myself, instead of kicking him in the balls, as it were, and end things. But yeah, I try to turn it into a positive and say that, I should keep on going, because otherwise it would just be a kick in the teeth to him. But yeah, it's something that I regret a lot, and it's something that I'm living with. I remember at the time I found out that he passed in the same room that I had my transplant in, and I remember at that age, you think silly things. But I remember blaming myself, thinking it was my fault because we were in the same room. I was in there before him for my transplant, and you're in there for, I don't even know how long it was, a couple of weeks, like a month and a half maybe. And I just thought, what if it was, that they might not clean the room properly, I don't know, disinfected the room, and you got germs from me or something. But I found out it was just that when he was in isolation, he wasn't doing very well, and his mum noticed that he wasn't smiling and he wasn't happy, and he was just really, really not doing well, which we always were, just happy and smiling and having a laugh with things. And she just said he wasn't himself, and he was on a life support machine. And then they just said we should pull the plug on it because he's not himself, and we don't want him to clearly get worse and be in pain, I guess. But yeah, like I said, I try and use it as a positive thing. So whenever I need drive to, get on with things and not give up, then I think about him and what he'd want me to do. So I think that's what, people should do when they go into bad situations. You should never, give up on things just because something bad's happened. You should think, what would they want, or, how can I use this to make myself a better person? How can I pull through it on the other side and really turn it around to say, this has happened, but, you can do better. You can build yourself up, and you can turn it into something amazing. So yeah, it's something that I live with, and it's something horrible, but I also, it's one of the strongest things about me that, for the drive, that's what I think about, what he'd want for me, and how I shouldn't ever give up, because all through those years of fighting, we both never gave up. A lot of the time I feel like, it should have been the other way around, and he would have made more things, but that isn't how it's how it's turned out. So, like I said, I'm trying to turn it into something positive. So I just wanted to share that kind of story, Yeah, so like I said, you can always turn something into something positive. So, never think that something that bad happening, or worse things happen, it's not the end. You can always turn it into something great and turn it around and make yourself better, because you've got a whole fucking future ahead of you, and you shouldn't be dwelling and getting upset on the past. All right, guys, thank you for listening, and I just wanted to share that. All right, guys, take it easy. Peace.